Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube Enchanted Live series. I'm so excited to be here with you, especially for this episode that I like to call Knowing. I believe there comes a moment when we stop asking ourselves, like, what should we do? And not because it's like we have everything figured out, not because the path is perfectly defined, but more so because something inside of us already knows, right? It already knows. Have you ever felt that? I'm sure you have, right? It's like that little twinkle in you. You're like, I know something. And it's a moment where everything looks right. It makes sense. It's validated. And even in some cases to others might feel impressive from the outside. But something inside you doesn't settle. You can't fully explain it. And you don't have the language for it. And yet still, you know. So when someone's like, well, tell me more. And you're like, I don't know that next part. I just know. So if you've been on this journey with me, you know that I focused the original episode on the pause, right? It's creating the space to really understand where we're getting pulled outside and where we're staying within our center. And then there's a second series that we had, which was really focused on steadiness. And I love that word so much because steadiness to me is about creating the space and the environment, right, where you can live within the space that you're occupying, where you feel safe to be your authentic self. And it's not safety as in there's a fear of something happening. It's more about I feel calm and grounded. And now here we are, right? We're at this part that I like to say, it's not about more thinking. It's not about more effort. It's about something that's a little bit quieter and something that's a little bit more precise. And if you know me, you know I love this kind of theme about these quiet essences that we have, quiet confidence, quiet listening, right? There's something in the quiet that really helps us understand the broader perspective. If you know me, you know I also love these concept theories. And if you don't know me, well, you're certainly learning a lot about me. But there's this one around information theory, and it's a difference between signal and noise. And signal is what actually carries meaning, right? It is the little, sign that we might see. It is something that indicates a direction. And we can understand it. Noise is everything that distorts it. When you think about the two, I really like to think about it the signal is always there. It's always there. The challenge, and I feel this myself quite a bit, is that it's often surrounded by the noise. And in the world we live in today, there is no shortage of noise. And I don't care what environment you're in, unless maybe you're in a hammock eating bonbons someplace with somebody fanning you. There's definitely this element of there's just too much noise. There's opinions, there's expectations, there's trends, there's advice, there's comparison, there's all these different areas. And everything can sound so intelligent, everything can look a certain way or have this perfection to it. Everything feels like momentum. And in fact, it could be momentum, but the question I would ask is it the right momentum? Because not everything is a signal. And you felt this, right? A decision where you check that box, everything made sense to everyone around you. And then in the back of your mind, you're like, something doesn't feel right. And then you go back and you reflect on it. And maybe sometimes you don't give yourself the space to do that, but I think we should. And then there's something that's a little less obvious, a little different way to solve it, a little less validated. But it is clean and it is certain. And it's that is what I call the knowing. It's not about the more information. It's about recognizing the signal and having the discipline to ignore what isn't. Because the noise is loud. The noise is, oh my gosh, the noise gets rewarded. It gets attention. I can't tell you the countless places where I've had the signal and I was surrounded by so much noise and the noise won. And it's made me question, am I off on this? But what I know to be true is that the signal is real. The signal is quiet. It doesn't argue for your attention. And it's not trying to convince you of something. There is something that's just very grounded. And I'm sure that you've noticed this yourself. Knowing doesn't feel chaotic. It doesn't feel frenetic. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't overwhelm you. And it often sounds like, this isn't it. This is right. This is not for me. Not a long explanation, just clarity without the noise. Here's where I think it kind of goes deeper, because recognizing the signal is only part of it. The real work is in the calibration. Think about any type of system, right? There's a calibration. It doesn't matter how strong the signals is, it misreads, and we can do the same. So we need to kind of calibrate ourselves, people. Miscalibration, if you're like, what does that look like? Miscalibration's overthinking something that was simple, explaining something that was already clear, looking for the validation for something you already knew. And guess what? That's not confusion, right? That's just miscalibration. Think about that. And when we're calibrated, it feels like the decisions are cleaner to make. It doesn't require this unnecessary urgency. It doesn't require these long explanations. And it's not louder. I mean, how many times have you been in a room where people just get louder and it's like we're actually not going where we need to go? And the difference with the calibration is that it's just aligned, right? It's just simply aligned. I was recently, in a meeting, and I kind of felt like I am not feeling good about this. My signal was off. And it was in regards to my humanitarian work, and nobody agreed with me. I was just like kind of in this bubble of what I believed to be true, what I knew needed to happen. And yet there was all this noise around me, all this noise of, oh, well, you can do it a little bit longer, or, oh, you should do this, or, oh, maybe like this is going to be different. And at the end of the day, I was just overanalyzing the situation nonstop. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I couldn't stop replaying it. I couldn't stop thinking about the different scenarios. And at the end of the day, it felt tense inside of me. It felt like I was giving more attention to all the external factors than I was what I intuitively knew. And that's what I learned. The moment I start overanalyzing something is usually the moment I've stopped trusting what was already clear. I could give you so many examples of being in a meeting and overanalyzing what I said and overanalyzing how someone responded. And I catch myself. And I've started to ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Is this about me? Is this about somebody else? And what I learned, or have come to learn, perhaps is a better way to say it, is that no, that overanalyzing is me responding. It's me responding to the noise, and it's me allowing the signal to fade. And when I do that, I'm not great. I'm not bringing the best thinking I could be bringing. I'm not going in the momentum, right, at the pace with the energy that I want to. And so I started to kind of recognize that when I start to overanalyze, I catch myself and I start to think about what is it that I'm not fully trusting, and what is it that's actually clear behind it. So what I realized in those moments was that every time I was overanalyzing something, it just meant I stopped trusting what I already knew to be clear and to be true. And my way of reaching those conclusions and your way of reaching those conclusions are not going to be others, and that's okay. And maybe that's why I started to realize when I was overanalyzing based on other people's, contributions, noise that they were bringing in, but I wasn't fully bringing in and acknowledging, like, I already knew, and I could just kind of take solace in that. I want you to ask yourself, where in life are you choosing the noise? Like, think about different environments you're in, whether it's with your family, your friends, your work, whatever it might be, right? Where are you choosing the noise? And let me be honest, sometimes I think it's easier to choose the noise because it sounds like it's such a larger collective, right? And so it actually takes great discipline to come back to this signal, right? To come back to this calibration. And then I want you to think about, right, where are you overriding something that's already clear? Like, you have that knowing in you and that you're overriding it. And try to understand the why. Like, is it that you're asking for more input? Is it that you're looking for somebody else to validate it for you? I just want you to really listen to that. What does that look like in real time? It looks like, pausing before we override like what we know to be true. It's about noticing when you start explaining something that doesn't need the explanation, right? Just catch yourself. Are you trying to over-validate and over-explain? And then catching ourselves when we're trying to convince ourselves instead of listening, right, to what we know. Sometimes I think we can be like, oh, it can't be that easy to know this. Oh, this can't be this easy to solve. Oh, this can't be that I know the answer already. This should be so much harder. But why? Why should it be so much harder? It shouldn't. Because in fact, if we listen more to the signals than we did the noise, we would be moving at a different state. We would be moving in what I would call upward, right? We're not just trudging on, we're going up. And this is where I really think about my Compass series. And so I have like the series, which many of you know, and I have different kind of taglines that go with each one. But I wanted to go through how I think about the Compass series with this, right? Be you without distortion. Be true without interference. Be purposeful without distraction. Be present without fragmentation. Be aware without overwhelm. Be curious, but not easily influenced. Be love, but grounded in self-trust. We don't need more opinions. We don't need, in many cases, more data. We don't need more noise. What we need is to recognize what has already been true. Your power is not in knowing more, right? Your power is knowing what to ignore. Don't you love that? I just love that. Your power is not in knowing more. It's in knowing what to ignore. If this resonates, which I really hope it does, I've been having so many conversations. I was out to dinner with a friend last week, and we were just talking about, her environment, my environment, and just how easy it is to go to the noise. And I had made a comment to her, like, I really believe, like, there's so much more in our lives to explore, and, we're in our 50s, and I just said, I believe like there's so much more to explore. And she said to me, I'm so happy you said that. And I said, why? And she said, because some of the conversations she's in, people are acting like 50s are over, right? Like our lives are done. And, it was a way for her, my saying about the opportunity and how great it is and what's next was the signal for her to acknowledge the noise that she has been listening to. So your power is not in knowing more, it's in knowing what to ignore. And what I would say is, ask yourself this question: what do I already know that I'm not honoring? Right? And I hope, in a world that constantly gives you input, the challenge isn't finding the answers. It's about filtering what matters. I hope this resonated with you. I hope that you're able to really think about the signal versus the noise. to think about what is true and where maybe you might just need to pull back a bit when the noise starts happening, and settle in what you know to be true and trust what you know to be true. Because in that trust is the knowing, in the knowing is the movement, in the movement is the calibration. We don't need more opinions. We don't necessarily need more data. We don't need more noise. We need to recognize what has already been true. And we need to know in ourselves that signal, a signal that tells us what is true. Because our power is not in knowing more. It's in knowing what to ignore. And I really want to say that again because I just love it so much. Your power is not in knowing more. It's in knowing what to ignore. So when the noise comes, ask yourself, do I already know what's true? Do I already know the answer? Do I already know what next step I should take? And if you start to feel the noise, if you start to hear it, if it starts to infiltrate you, maybe simply ask, am I overanalyzing these other inputs? And if you are, that's your sign. That's your sign to give it a rest and to be with the truth and to know that you're choosing the signal over the noise. I hope that this resonates with you. I love being here with you all. And most importantly, I really love hearing how you share with me, whether it's a message, whether it's I see you, whether it's a comment or connect. I love hearing what's going on with you. I love that amidst all of the crazy, that we have so many more important things to talk about, right? We have so many more important things that allow us all to be our best, that we have so many more important things that actually drive action and momentum in a way that is motivating and empowering and impactful. And so let this be your sign and your signal to remember what you know and trust it. Lots of love. See you soon.